So April, you brought your mug. All
I
right.
did.
Okay. So my name is Addie with Addie's Boutique and shopaddies.com. And I'm visiting with April Cornell, who has the April Cornell linens and apparel line. And we carry her apparel line here in the shop and have for about 4 or 5 years now. So it's one of our favorites. It's one of our favorite lines in the shop. You have a cult following in here in the shop. And we do a series called Morning Mugs, and you do a series called Creative Conversations on your Facebook page, right?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Yeah. And so we're here to visit together. And I'm so glad that your people were able to connect us. Thank you for visiting.
Thank you. And, maybe we can combine morning mugs and creative conversations.
I would
And
love
have a
that.
creative morning mug of conversation.
I would love that. In fact, I've already been thinking about your felting kits with the stenciling and how I can have a party here at the shop and we can get a bunch of girls to do it. And maybe you could give us tips.
I would love
Pointers.
to.
Okay.
It is so fun. It is really like painting with wool. It is, if you love color and you like, it totally reflects how you would paint or draw.
Yes.
It just comes out in wool like that. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, when you first launched them, I got some for gifts, and now that you've added the stenciling in, I think that'll be
right.
Perfect.
It's a good starting point for people if they feel a little shy about doing their own artwork. Then you can, and there are things like teacups and pears and still life items that are all around us, and I think that sort of reaffirm who we are, and they're just fun things to felt. They're simple. Felting's very simple. It's really easy.
Can't wait. So so what we do with Morning Mugs and you're sweet to play along is we ask our visitors to show us their favorite mug and tell us why it's your favorite. So you brought one?
I did. I brought two because,
it's hard
in
to
our
narrow down
world
to one.
is never one. Anyways, I love this one. It's by a local Vermont artist. It's a really pretty, I don't know, between jade sort of color, a little bit aquamarine, and it's all cut along the sides, and it's got the perfect handle, and it fits nicely. It's not too big.
Right.
It's nicely in your hand. I just love it. It's perfect.
Because it's good
I love
for
the
your
color.
hands. It's a good shape and
it's
size
a good shape, and it's like looking at it, coffee looks good in it. The colors work.
Yes.
I mean, I just like it.
The artist, it's aesthetically pleasing.
It's aesthetically pleasing when you're making your own little still life tableau of coffee and little, saucer, pretty saucer or something. It fits.
Good.
Maybe a small bouquet of flowers,
Yeah. And you brought a second one too?
I brought a second one because really, I love this one. And this is a blueberry pattern. And my grandparents were from Nova Scotia, and it was all about blueberry picking. And so it brings good memories. And it's a line of mugs that we must have done 20 years ago.
I was going to ask if it was one of yours.
It is. And a friend just found some in her cellar and gave me 4. So it's back in action.
That's nice. Mug. Back in the rotation, the coffee rotation.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Good. Very good. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's fun. It's good to know you in a personal way. And I didn't know your people were from Nova Scotia.
That's right. That's right. From Cape Breton Island.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Well, so one of the things that we love about your line here is the details of all the pieces. My customers immediately, when they walk in the door, they know if it's yours because of the detail work, the tucks and the buttons, and like on this jacket, the lining here and the different fabric under the collar,
right.
All your detail work. And that was one of the things they wanted me to ask you about was, where does that come from? How are you so inspired to do that? Or where do those inspirations come from? And how do you execute that?
So I love the details too. And I really believe that every piece should be the best it can be.
Yes.
So when we make it and we design it and then we look and we say, okay, what else can we add? And, it could be a simple classic jacket like that, but let's just put something in there that's going to make the customer smile and feel good, like the lining under the collar in a beautiful golden print. Let's just, and we can do that. I love vintage. We talked about earlier. I'm very inspired by the tailoring details and the needlework and the craftsmanship that is available in vintage garments. And I love to take those items, which could be just the way a pocket is shaped, or it could be a trim on a cuff, or a kind of a pleating, which has now become our vocabulary of design too. We've been doing it for so long. But I have to say, many of those inspirations come from garments and items that women owned a century ago when they were making their own clothes and when they were using maybe precious fabrics, but often things that they had in their home that they repurposed and put in there, and they maybe had a beautiful dress, but then kind of got worn out and they put a new collar or they put a trim. And so they became very personalized and very precious. So I love finding those details and doing the same thing in the kind of clothing that we make now. We do have our own factory. So we have the freedom, really, we have the freedom to sample and try to do things which would not be possible if we were doing with somebody else. We allow ourselves to do that.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, and I think that is one of the things that makes your line so special, is that it is sort of personalized, and you have brought the past forward, but you've modernized it in such a way for those of us who, you said yesterday, it was the perfect word. You said women today aren't sedentary, and they really aren't sedentary. We're definitely women on the go, but that doesn't mean that we want to look utilitarian, that we want to look fast track. We want to be feminine and all of those things. And your clothes really, they bridge that gap, and they become, I think, like the pieces you're describing as inspiration. Your pieces today become kind of heirloom-like pieces. I have a dress that I bought, an April Cornell dress that I bought years ago, and I have held on to it because it's one of my personal favorite pieces. And it's just the beautiful detail work. And you do such a good job of fitting women so that they feel not just pretty, but also very comfortable and very confident. You do that very well. And that was one of the things my customer said, please tell her. Please tell her we love the way she fits us.
Well, I have a lot of respect for women and for their lives and for what they do and how they feel. And I certainly don't wear anything myself more than a couple of times if it doesn't feel good. Yes. But if something feels good and makes you look good, helps you look who you want to be, then that is just, you wear it over and over. You're in love with it. You're like, hey, somebody gets me. So I like to think that our customers understand that I'm trying to get them.
They do. Okay. The ones you have here absolutely do. Absolutely. In fact, we unbox boxes of yours and I'll, put it out and they'll say, oh, that April. She just gets it. It's like, I know, she just does. Very much so. Yeah.
Okay. I think if you buy something, it should be beautiful and it should make you feel good. Agreed. It should make you feel good. It should, every time you see it hanging in your cupboard, you should feel good that you made that purchase, and then that's just going to make your day a little better.
Yeah. And let you focus on the things you need to do and not in so much how you look. Yeah.
Right. It should be going along with you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things we love too so much about your line is your prints. We see a lot of floral, and we talked about yesterday some polka dot. And so in addition to, and we love how you combine your florals or your prints, whatever the print may be, with some of those details like the crocheted lace, like the embroidery, like all those other details that you do. So where do your prints come from? And I love so much that you have your own factory, and you have shown pictures before about your workers, of the people who work in your factory actually block printing
Yes.
still, which is just the coolest.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your inspiration for prints and how you
So
choose what you choose.
I also like to think that we're sort of not completely in a box, or it's a box of our own making in our own kind of, like your
Yes.
store,
Yes. Yes.
it's your box, and you
Uh-huh.
can do whatever you want
Do what
in
you
it. And I
want.
think
That's right.
that is a privilege of owning your own company, as you know. So we have it as, I think our style is not one style. I love the vintage, as I said, and I love vintage prints, some of them going back to the 1800s, which we collect the old documents and then revive those prints and print them,
Oh.
mainly screen printing. I also personally draw some of our prints and paint some of the watercolors that get reproduced mainly digitally, because that has so many colors in it.
Right.
And then we do block printing, very traditional block printing, with the indigo dyes and, rose madder and, different, including earth and dirt goes into the color combination. So I love those. And they just fade and get soft, and they're so beautiful over time.
Yes.
But I love the marriage of all that. Like I love, like, say, some indigo duster and then a Victorian style lace blouse underneath, like that.
Yes.
I love putting those things together. And maybe like a very, one of our leggings with embroidery on, like very easy bottom piece, and then the sort of the heartfelt pieces on top, but so the combining of that, I've been traveling for, more than 45 years to the East, to Asia, all in that world, and it has totally seeped into me, its influences. So that's, all of these things, and being person of an artistic persuasion, all of that kind of, the color palette and the shaping and the forming, I think we do with our apparel like somebody does with a painting. We're trying to put it together in a way. Okay, it's a practical thing, you're going to use it and wear it, but it's also a thing of beauty, and it should be. I personally cut embroidered yokes out of nighties and stuff and just keep them, because, okay, I can't wear that nightie anymore, but I sure love the embroidery.
Right.
You
Right.
can
And
even
maybe you
frame
could
them.
use it somewhere else, on something else.
Absolutely. Or even, frame them and hang them.
Right.
Old pieces. I love that. So I think I know I'm totally off topic now. I don't know
No,
how that
not a
happened.
bit. No, not a bit. It's the artistry of what you're doing, not just the prints you're making, not just the embroidering, but the way the vision for your line at large is an artistic vision for it too. And I like the way that you have started putting your groups, you've started your collections, a certain color palette, or a
Right.
particular look, or
Right.
and that, I love that, because it adds such another layer of interest. And you notice things perhaps when they're grouped that way. It's like
Right.
merchandising in the shop. You
Exactly.
notice things when they're grouped a certain way, that you might not have noticed had it been in a different group, or hanging in a different place in the
Right.
shop, or
Right.
whatever. So I love the way the way you put your line together. It's very it's interesting and it's thoughtful. And I think that's one of the things that I connect with
I love
so
that word.
much. Yeah. That I connect with so much about your line, but I think that my customers connect with too, is that it is obvious that there's been thought given to it, and that everything is very intentional, and that with that intention is a level of care and love that has gone into the garment, which makes them special. It's not just clothes, it's so much more than that. And I think because you are so thoughtful in not just your design, but in the way you put your collections together, from the kinds of fabrics that you use, all the way to when you do the photo shoot and the catalog of your romantic, Victorian romantic collection.
Right.
That level of thought and that sort of cohesive idea that runs throughout your line, I think creates, in my shop it has anyway, and I think online too with your Facebook page and things, because I follow you there too, and your Instagram, but I've been following you longer on Facebook.
Right.
Is that because you're so thoughtful and creative and intentional, your line builds a community around itself. I told you yesterday about, and I hope it's okay if I retell it, but I had a woman who bought one of your denim jackets with embroidery on it. And she was telling me that she was in line to vote last week or the week before, early voting. And that she was turned around speaking to the person behind her. And it was a very long line, she said, and yards away, she heard someone yell, April Cornell. And she turned around and she was like, there's this strange woman. I'd never seen her before, never met her before. And she was pointing to me saying, April Cornell, and then pointed to herself and said, April Cornell. And so these two strangers in a very public place come together and have a conversation about your line and the things they love about the buttons and the embroidery and the lace and all the things you do intentionally, and then talk about our shop too. But that only happens around certain lines. That wouldn't happen around every line I carry. It happens around your line because you have created a community of women in my shop, but I think in all the shops that you're in. Absolutely. And I can't tell you how sweet it is to me to watch that develop.
Well, when you told me that story yesterday, I had to go back and tell the people in the office, and that was about best vote story that I've heard. I felt so flattered.
To the community.
That was lovely. Yeah, it was lovely. Kindred spirits, they can seek each other out. And I think we talked a little bit about our customers and that, what defines them. And I think one of the things that defines them is they are artists themselves.
Yes.
They have an artistic eye, not necessarily meaning they draw or paint, though they probably all could if they would allow themselves. Mm-hmm. But they see life, they see the beauty in life. They see the curves and the shapes, that make no moment commonplace. They see the color, they see that. And that's a big connection. And then it goes from there.
Yes.
They're drawn to that. And I think that's one of the things they have in common. Many more things too. They tend to be like wonderful people, which I'm sure through your shop.
Yes.
They're just like beautifully compassionate people. They're aware. They are thoughtful. Mm-hmm. They're fun. They enjoy life. They embrace life. I mean, I always say, if you had to stop and have a cup of tea or coffee with someone or a glass of wine, like you would want to sit beside one of our customers.
Yes.
That you would enjoy yourself.
Yes. Right. Because they're interested in the world
and
around
interesting.
Them. And they're interesting. Yes.
Because of that. Yes.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah. Yes. Well,
so we just trying to find ways to make them happy. And I think we said yesterday, we want to take people to a good place.
Take people to a good place. I wrote it down. And I'm going to keep it in my office somewhere. Take people to a good place.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That's great. Well, do you have any questions for me?
Well, you've been so forthcoming. I think this has been wonderful for me to kind of learn more about you and just to be with you. It's absolutely lovely. And
it has
I
been
love
my
your
pleasure.
Setting. You look beautiful.
Thank you.
You really
too.
do.
And I love your backdrop and your, I love your linens too. We buy. I'm a boutique. I'm apparel line. We do apparel, but I love your linens too, and and all of your dishware. Love everything you do, and have for a long, long time.
Thank you.
Thank you for
appreciate it.
Being willing to visit today. I appreciate that very much. I can't tell you what it's meant to me. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll have another mug one time. How
I
about
hope
that?
so. I'll look
Yeah.
forward to it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right.
You take
Thank you so
care.
much. Good
Ciao.
afternoon. Ciao.
Ciao.